Right now, I want to bring in my guest who's standing by in Los Angeles, California. She is a forensic psychiatrist. She's also testified as an expert witness at trials. She also writes a column. Dr. Carole Lieberman is on the show tonight. Hi, Dr. Carole. Thanks for being with us. Okay, so who better to ask than you about how Dr. David Spiegel did when he was testifying? Your thoughts, please.
Dr. Spiegel is an embarrassment to all expert witnesses.
What? Why?
Yes.
Whoa.
Well, first of all, it seems like they might have called central casting for someone who looks like a psychiatrist, but he was a caricature, really, in the end, with his comments. You would think that he really, I know theoretically he has worked as an expert witness before, but that's what he does primarily now. But you would think he would know things like, yes, you have to answer that question when the attorney is asking you a question, and yet he turned to the judge and he said, do I have to answer that? I mean, and plus all of the things that he was saying, his body language, he was moving his hands in this kind of all different ways, but a lot of it was like this at the jury, like very aggressively. He was self-righteous. He was like, don't dare to question me. And actually, that is a trap that a lot of expert witnesses fall into if they don't know what they're doing on cross. That they think that they can, because they know more in psychiatry, of course, than the attorney. They think that they can somehow snow them in it, but he was really just acting defensive. He fell more and more into a defensive hole on cross. He sort of made his way through direct, but on cross he just got angry and made inappropriate comments, and he just lost it.
Well, so I think really what our viewers want to know is, when we're talking not about his performance or how he might have appeared, what we want to ask you about is the forensic psychiatry that he shared with the jury, the opinions that he formed based on the evidence that he reviewed. What did you think about his opinions, not the way he testified?
Well, I think, first of all, there was a number of things that he said that were just wrong. Like, for example, he was asked about some medications, about Seroquel, and he talked about that being used for sleep. Seroquel is an antipsychotic. Any psychiatrist who gives that to a patient to sleep is basically doing malpractice, because you don't use an antipsychotic, something with potentially very serious side effects, to help somebody to sleep. He did a lot of things, like also talking about the drugs. He used the expression a lot about street drugs, or this is on the street, he kept saying, when he knew that, or he should have known, that Johnny Depp had a prescription. The diagnoses, the things that he said, I'm not telling you a diagnosis. Well, substance abuse and even saying narcissistic personality traits is really a diagnosis. I mean, that he was kind of splitting hairs in that in the DSM-5, there isn't a specific number for traits per se, but that is a diagnosis to say that somebody has, any kind of narcissistic traits, histrionic traits. That is basically making a diagnosis. So that didn't make any sense. Then when he talked about how, well, of course, the big one was when he talked about how he didn't get to examine Johnny Depp. That was the big deal. And he said that he had asked to examine him. Now, the reason why the judge wouldn't have let Johnny Depp be examined, or wouldn't have made him be examined, is because he wasn't putting his mental, emotional distress damages in question.
Right.
Whereas Amber was. So there was no reason to agree to a mental exam. But, the thing is, when people do that, I mean, I learned this early in my career as an expert, when if you don't examine the person, then of course, like I remember this traumatic event as an expert when the opposing attorney, I did a beautiful direct, and then the opposing attorney said, that was you talked a lot about my client, and that was a very interesting theory that you had, and so on. But did you ever meet my client? It was after that now I will never testify about somebody who I have not had the chance to examine unless they're dead, unless I did ask the court to let me examine them and they refused, but with the caveat of saying at the beginning, I am basing my opinions on this, this, and this, and I didn't have the opportunity to examine the person, which would have, of course, made me able to formulate a better opinion. But he didn't do that. He didn't want to say that there could be anything wrong, or that he didn't base his opinion on enough.
Yeah, well, so a lot to unpack there. One point I want to circle back to, and then we have to take a break, is that Amber Heard in the pleadings and what they're saying, was part of the damage that she suffered at the hands of Johnny Depp and the abuse that she's alleging occurred was suffering from PTSD. And that's what Dr. Lieberman was just referencing. For anybody wondering at home, that was what she was referencing about the judge saying, well, Amber Heard put her mental health at issue by saying in the pleadings in this litigation that she's suffering from this, whereas Johnny Depp did not say he's suffering from anything. So that's why the court allowed for Amber Heard to be evaluated by an expert of the Depp's team choosing, Dr. Shannon Curry, who's going to be on the witness list. Well, she is on the witness list. We'll see if she's called on rebuttal in the Depp case. And we have to leave it there for now. But Dr. Carole Lieberman is going to stay with us.